Muldrotha is the Sultai commander, Sultai being one of the most efficient and effective three-color pairs we can get, and Muldrotha is no exception to that. So Muldrotha is the 3 and Sultai color legendary creature elemental avatar at 6/6. She is big, she is expensive, but you get so much value from her ability, which says during each of your turns, you may play up to one permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard, and we are certainly going to abuse that today with this deck. I'm actually going to start today's deck with the engine because it honestly is the most fascinating part of the deck to me. So let's look at card draw, for example. Cards like Nihil Spellbomb, which would normally be terrible. You pay 1 to put it on the battlefield and you tap it. Exile all cards from target player's graveyard, which is actually not why it's in there, but it will be potentially useful for us. And it's always good to have a little graveyard hate. But it says when it enters the battlefield, or excuse me, when it goes to the graveyard from the battlefield, so basically you're paying 1, you can pay a black, and if you do, draw a card. So that altogether is 2 for 1 to draw a card, and you can bring it back once every turn. And we have tons of cards like that. Implement of Examination, another one, comes in for 3, and for a blue you can sack it to draw a card, and when it's put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you draw another card. So that's a 4 for 2 rate, pretty good, and you can see a ton of cards like that. We also have Thallid Soothsayer, a nice little sacrifice outlet. Again, sacrificing creatures, not a big deal for us because we can bring them back, and you can see that that is our engine, and it's so cool and good, and we're going to get so much value. Also, very similar, our ramp package in this is really unique because we can play cards like Sakura-Tribe Elder, which are generally useful, but normally you would just play something like a Rampant Growth, and we have that as well. But you can sack Sakura-Tribe Elder and put a basic land card onto the battlefield, tapped, and then shuffle our library. But the crazy thing about this is we can do that every single turn, or every time our turn comes around, rather. So picture we play the Sakura-Tribe Elder for 2. We can keep it out until the end step if we want, which will leave us a blocker up. Then on the end step of the player before us, we sack it, put the land card into turn, and then just cast it right away again. So this deck really can ramp incredibly, just so fast and efficiently. Same thing with Fawn of Fertility. We put it in for 1, we sack it for 2, we put a basic land in, and then we can do that every single time until we get all the lands we want, and then we can keep on playing. Our removal, also very unique in this deck. A card like Lunar Force, normally terrible, a 3 CMC enchantment, which says when an opponent casts a spell, sack it and counter that spell. Unfortunately, it doesn't say may, so the next spell a person casts is going to get countered. And this really is going to hurt the person to our left a lot, and normally we wouldn't run this, but since we can play it every turn, picture the value that this accrues to. I mean, you're not going to play it on turns when you have other big plays to make, but if you have 3 mana lying around at the end of a turn because you don't have any big plays you're trying to make or you're already set up, it really puts your next opponent in a tough spot as they have to decide, what spell am I going to basically waste here to get sacked? So that's really amazing. Spiketail Drakeling, we can sack it to counter a spell and make it a quench. Not amazing, but it is good. We're going to run some things like Sultai Charm. And then, Caustic Caterpillar. A lot of our removal is like Caustic Caterpillar. We can put it in, leave it out on the field. People are going to see it. They're going to have to play around it. We can pay an amount and sack it to destroy target artifact or enchantment. And we have that for both enchantment, artifact, and creatures in this deck, which is amazing. So after we do have that really nice engine, Sultai known for its efficiency and for its value engines, how are we going to win the game? So a big theme that I wanted to go for is, since we don't mind stuff going to the graveyard, let's go with a group sacrifice deck. So cards like Fleshbag Marauder, or Butcher of Malakir, or Merciless Executioner. The Executioner is even better because, or no, excuse me. Both the Executioner and the Marauder are going to make everyone sack a creature, but again, we're going to have so many things out there that we really don't mind to sacrifice anyway. A lot of small bodies we're holding up for removal, and it's going to hurt our opponents that much more than us because we can just bring it back anytime we want, basically. And we also say things like Plague Crafter, Slum Reaper, and Thallid Soothsayer, and it's just causing opponents, sometimes ourselves, but causing people to sacrifice. And now, since we are leaning into that theme, we want to get some value out of that beyond just being able to cast it back. So you see like cards like Syr Konrad the Grim and Cruel Celebrant here. We're going to deal damage to people as stuff is entering the battlefield. Bloodbriar, another fun one. It doesn't do damage immediately, but whenever we sack a creature, we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on it, and that's insane. Sifter of Skulls, another one that's not on the screen, but it's one of my favorite. Whenever we sack a creature, we're going to make a little 1/1 Eldrazi creature token that we can also sack for 1 colorless mana. So that's also going to even ramp us and give us ramp that we can hold on to as we're sacking stuff. So that is just really, really good. Again, value. We're going to be sacking stuff. We're going to be dealing a little bit of chip damage. We're going to be drawing cards. We're going to be doing stuff like this. Syr Konrad also has the nice effect of allowing us to put stuff from people's libraries into their graveyard. A really funny play with Syr Konrad is if someone tutors to the top of their library, when they activate their draw spell or whenever they get ready to draw, we can just pay 2 and have them dump that card straight into the library, or excuse me, the graveyard. Very, very funny interaction with Syr Konrad. But again, this is one of our biggest strategies. This is not a big win on one turn kind of deck. This is a slow accrual of value, slowly eking out value by making our opponents sack things one by one, making them really challenge their thought process and what they want to keep and what they can get rid of. Another little extra value engine for us is some self-mill options. So Syr Konrad, like I just mentioned, can make us mill ourselves. So we also have Crawling Sensation, which says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put the top 2 cards of your library into your graveyard, and when we put a land card into our graveyard, we get to put a 1/1 onto the battlefield. So again, we're going to get to cast lots of cards out of our graveyard. Our hand essentially just extends into our graveyard, so we don't even care. We actually want our best cards in the graveyard if this is how we get them there, so that we can just cast them and essentially extend our hand into there. Now, Muldrotha is extremely important in this deck. We have a few things to protect her. We have things like a Dispel to handle some removal. We have Kaya's Ghost Form, which is just going to say when Muldrotha dies, bring her back. And so you do want to really protect Muldrotha if you're playing this deck, because she is essential to the deck. Without her, it really doesn't function. Now, before I go into some game winners, I just want to say thank you and tell you a few things quickly about the channel. So the biggest way you can help me out is by hitting that subscribe button. It is super new and early on in this channel, but I'm having so much fun and I've loved the feedback I've gotten. So if you can hit that subscribe button or hit like or hit share if you're enjoying it, of course, that really does help me out. You can check out the deck list for this in the description. I'll have all the cards lined out there, and I love getting your guys' feedback. So if you think a card is missing, if you think a card doesn't fit, or if you would have taken the deck a whole nother direction, let me know. Now let's jump on over to TCG Player and see what this deck is going for. And you can see on the screen, we always try to keep it about $25, and once again, we get pretty close. Now this is using the optimized deck list with this, and that is awesome. So go check it out on TCG Player. Thanks for your support. Would love to get your subscription, and thanks for joining me today. Now on to the game winners. So a couple ways that we can close out the game are Villainous Wealth, one of my favorite cards. If you can dump, 8 or 10 or 9 or 12 mana into this thing, you're going to get a bunch of value and a bunch of nasty cards. Unfortunately, it is only from an opponent's graveyard, or excuse me, from an opponent's library. We can't use our own. But this card can be disgusting, and it comes in at under $1, which is insane. 8 from the cow, not a big bang game winner like Villainous Wealth, but this is a slow accrual value card. So at the beginning of our instep, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, we can almost always control that with our sack outputs. We get to reveal the top card of our library, and if it's a permanent, any permanent in our deck, any creature, artifact, enchantment, etc., we get to put it on the battlefield. Otherwise, we can either leave it there or put it to the bottom. For only 5 mana, this card puts in a ton of work. It's almost an immediate threat. It's going to be casting stuff for free. It's going to be helping us manipulate the top to get the cards we want. It is absolutely insane. And Syr Konrad, another one that just slowly builds up so much value that over the course of the game, if opponents leave it out there, all of a sudden it's done 8, 10, 12, 14 damage to each opponent, and it is just a beater. So those are the ways we're going to win with this deck. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you get a chance to play a Muldrotha deck. If you already have one, let me know. Once again, thank you for joining me today. Go out and have yourself a great game of Commander this week. Peace, everybody.